Yeah, we can talk about the OTK stuff. So I don't doubt that they did a legitimate third-party investigation on all of the Miz stuff. I'm sure they did. I think it's a real big disservice to the entire community to not publicize the results of that investigation. I wasn't there, so I don't know what the truth is, but I imagine the investigation would have come as close as possible to finding the truth. And since all of this was in the public discourse, why wouldn't you release the findings of the investigation publicly? I feel like that's just a huge misstep. Like, it's hard for me to, like, just believe it. Like, why not show the results? Yeah, Tiana's watching, what the fuck's it called? The Recruit? Or something? Thanks for 5 gift subs, Reginald. Appreciate it, man. And the resub, Jow, your boy, Bull, Draconic, and Pancake. And no, I don't like Madden. So right now, Miz board duties are suspended and he's under a monitored probation with OTK, but he is back to being a member. And like I said, I don't doubt they went to a third party since they listed or named the third party investigation, like the organization that conducted it. But they needed to publicize that publicly so everyone could see the information, see the evidence, and then decide for themselves if this is a situation that was misunderstood, misconstrued, and make their decisions themselves. Because just taking the bland is the wrong word, but taking like the PR statement at face value is going to be super, super hard for most people, including me. I would have liked to see the evidence that was picked up by the investigation team. I don't know why they wouldn't make that public when everything else about it was public. So you need to prove it publicly, I would think. That's how I would have liked that to be handled. I'm sure it involves testimony which can't be disclosed. Okay, I don't need specifics. I don't need to know every participant's social security number. I just mean like the general scope of what they investigated, how they conducted it, what did they find in a general sense, and then people can draw their own conclusions from all of the evidence that was collected by a neutral third party, and everyone then can make their decision on do they forgive Mizkif, should Mizkif even go back to OTK, and all of that. I just really think that should have been a public thing from the investigation report. Thanks a resub Chump and Connor. And the bits, Ethan. Should have been a press release from the law firm. Agreed, yeah. And of course you can redact sensitive information. I don't think there's any merit in seeing very particulars about people involved. Just giving like the actual general evidence that you have collected would be sufficient. You don't have to put anyone's safety in jeopardy. But since all of this happened very publicly, it should all be revealed publicly. Thanks a resub helmet. Yeah, watch Lud's vid. Why does he have the does he have the investigation reports? Thanks for the 5 gift subs, dude. Alright.
Year means new goals, and maybe one of your goals this year
Thanks for
is to
resub,
burn
Devil.
as much money as possible.
Galloway.
And I have a great solution for you. It's called esports. If you don't know, pretty much every single esports organization is vastly overvalued because they're all subsidized by venture capitalist groups that are probably going to get fed up in 3 to 4
This is kind of quiet. Is this quiet on stream for you guys or not? Why is it quiet? Yeah, let me try that.
5 years when none of them are profitable, or
Is that better?
crypto exchanges. And we know what's happening with crypto exchanges. Let's just take a look at the Forbes top 10 most valuable esports companies. At the top, you can see TSM, 100 Thieves, Liquid, and FaZe Clan. Well, let's just take a look at TSM. How are they doing? Oh, they had a deal with FTX
jeepers.
that got suspended.
Zoinks.
$210 million. Okay, that's all right. Well, how about 100 Thieves? Are they? Oh, they laid off a bunch of people. Okay, well, you got to reduce overheads sometimes. Okay, what about Liquid? Oh, a deal with Coin.
And you guys always doubted me. I have told you since starting Moist Esports and getting into the scene, every goddamn tier 1 org is dreadfully overvalued and they're all hemorrhaging money. Just because they have those big fat like financial end of year statements like this doesn't mean they're profitable. In fact, up until the FTX collapse, TSM and I think it was 100 Thieves were the only two turning any meaningful profit, and 100 Thieves was making profit entirely off of the companies they absorb, which is, they're doing merch. They recently bought like Respawn chairs, I think. And then they also have their keyboard company. They're making it on things that aren't esports centric. It's like accessories in the space. Esports as a whole has like a 15x multiple on their valuation, which is ridiculous, and none of them are making money.
For 4 years. Surely that will last. And finally, FaZe Clan. Okay, publicly traded company, valued at 134 million. Wait, 400 million, 100. Okay, that dropped.
Lachlan. Oh, is that the real Lachlan?
That dropped really fast. Okay.
Is it Prime?
Well, that's
Tiana?
Look, not me just trying to make fun of esports orgs, because I like esports and I like anyone who takes an attempt at making it work. It just doesn't seem like the economics of it match the ambitions of a lot of the people inside of the sphere. What does work, however? Content teams, influencers, signing content creators, which a lot of esports orgs do,
AV.
and that seems to be the profitable part of their business, and it's also what some content teams do. I mean, take offline TV, for example. You put all these people in a room, they print out multiple million view videos that they can sell giant sponsors on. I mean, pretty much every one of their videos has a sponsor, and they're getting buku bucks for that with pretty low overhead because they each have their own individual careers. Now, imagine you could combine the content team of OTV.
No, Moist Esports is very, 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 very far from profitable. It's not even close. Lettuce said nothing that's wrong right now about esports. It is not a profitable scene. None of the orgs can actually figure out a way to make money from esports directly. It's all through like the accessory stuff. Like again, 100 Thieves and their merch, their chairs, their keyboards, shit like that. None of them are properly monetizing the space, but everything is so overvalued that everyone for some reason has this desire to get in. So it attracts a lot of venture capital. Hold on, let me see if Tetra's alright. I could hear a coughin. Give me 2 seconds. Why are esports teams so overvalued? Because the space has become like a gold rush. So esports is blown up. It's a multi-billion-dollar industry now. So that's attracted a ton of the old money who sees the numbers and they're like, wow, this must be like a great space for making cash. Like, for example, Vinnick, the owner of the Tampa Bay Lightning, owns Team Liquid. And you're telling me he knows anything about gaming? Absolutely not. It's just all of this old money saw these big numbers and they got into the space, which drove the value of every esports org through the goddamn roof way too quickly. So now everything just has a massive, massive, massive overvaluation. Is the resub JB in the Prime sacrifice?
With maybe the more
yeah,
rigid
Shaq owns
structure of
NRG.
an esports org, and you end up with something like OTK, One True King, a streamer-backed esports org
school.
that doesn't really do esports. I mean, they had a team in World of Warcraft, but they dropped the team, so they're pretty much just sticking with the good old-fashioned content creator route, which is smart because they're not only able to sell sponsors on the watch hours of all the people inside the org, they're also able to sell things directly to consumers with businesses they start, like Starforge Systems. I mean,
this is a good question, actually. Outside of talent, what are the big costs of esports that stop them from making a profit? So, right away, player salaries are huge in the space, at least depending on the games. But player salaries are big because you have to think. You're paying 5 players plus a coach if you're in like something like CSGO, and a manager, and travel costs for 6 people. And you don't make any money off of the events unless it's like a major prize pool, and even then it's only a percentage. Now, Moist Esports, we make 0% when our teams win. That all goes to our players because for us, it's just fun content. I stream it, I watch party it, people sub, maybe people buy the merch, so it kind of offsets a little bit, but never actually comes close to breaking even or anything. But it's worth it for me because of the content. But for like a normal esports org that has venture capital backing, all of that budget is spent on the salaries, the travel, in the hopes that they win a major where they make usually like 20 to 30, well, it really varies, but let's just be safe and say somewhere between 20 and 30% of the prize pool. And that's, take something like Rocket League. That's, let's say, first place at one of the regionals. You get 90K. I think it was 90K when we won the spring major. So you're taking 20% of that. That's still not a lot for a major esports org. So you don't make a lot of money from winning. So then you have to try and make it elsewhere. So you're spending tons of money on these salaries. So what do? In some esports orgs, they get really shady, in my opinion, and they start taking from their players' revenue on stream. I don't know how common this is anymore, but when we first got in here, that seemed to be pretty common. So the org actually takes a percentage of their stream revenue in order to try and make some of that money back, which I think is fucked up. But that was another way that they tried to monetize the esports scene. And that still isn't a ton, because the streamers, they're still making the lion's share. The org's getting a percentage of that, and they're still paying tons of money for the salaries and all of the teams built around them. So, what else do? Well, they try merch. Merch is usually pretty good, but it's not the hardest hitting because not too many people are running around with... We'll just use... What's a good one? I don't want to do FaZe. I'm trying to think of a more, less... We'll say G2. Like, merch is good for G2, but no one's buying tons of G2 merch every single time. Plus, the players promoting it, it doesn't feel genuine most of the time. And as, a viewer, you're not going in there, listening to one of the players talk about the merch and be like, oh, he's talking about it because he really likes it. It's a contractual obligation, and everyone knows that. So they're not super interested in just buying it based on that. So there's just not many ways that these teams are bringing in big money. And they're paying so much on the salaries and the travel and all of the verticals they had to build around it just to make it function. So it's just been a super tricky space for all of them. That's why everyone's constantly hemorrhaging money in esports. Sponsors help, for sure, because it's at least something guaranteed, but it's still just not enough to offset the massive costs. There's a tier 1 Antonio in the resub, Happy and Maury. Esports merch what was that? I missed it. It was something like esports merch should be sleek and with a small logo and look good. That's what we believe as well. That's why our Moist Esports shit just looks really good on its own. You'd never know that it's Moist Esports or anything gaming related, except for the jersey, obviously. The jersey's very clearly a jersey, but the tracksuit and shit is just something you can wear everywhere and no one would have any idea. Because it just looks good. Feels good. Thanks to the Prime, Happy, and the give sub slam, and the resub text. So yeah, every esports org except for 2 are hemorrhaging money. And all the others, it's a weird space.
I mean, imagine if I had swipe bidets and then I had a team of 10 creators that I worked with all the time and they all sold swipe bidets individually. We'd get a lot of buttholes clean in the new year. So it makes sense. And don't just take my word for it. Let's look at the most popular Twitch teams by hours watched. Obviously, G Fuel at the top. They have 671 creators. XQC's org, he's up top there. Loaded, they have a bunch of big creators. And OTK's fourth. They're fourth with only 14 people, and a couple of their creators barely streamed over the past year for reasons we're going to get into. Now, I haven't made any videos about OTK because, well, none of the individual pieces felt substantial enough to talk about for longer than a couple of minutes.
I thought it looked good, deep.
But enough has happened over the past year, and especially with the update last night that ended the investigation on Mizkif, that I feel like we can talk about it all today. Now, we're going to get to the investigation with Mizkif at the end, but first, let's do things in order with what started off their terrible month of December, and it involves another one of their founders, Rich Campbell. Now, Rich Campbell, if you don't know, is a esports host turned streamer who did a lot of maybe the more business side of things behind OTK, and one of the people
Blood
that
reacting
he used
to
to
you,
be in a
reacting to
relationship
him.
with
Hey!
on Twitter, dropped a tweet longer.
Hope you're having a great stream, big guy. Hope you're well. Thanks to the resub, Websy. I was just getting into the weeds of what it's like to be in the esports space. I was giving everyone a little conference meeting on what it's like to do nothing but lose money in esports, but have a lot of fun doing it. Thanks to the resub, Purple Fox. How long has Moist been around? A year and 4 months now. Thanks to the resub, Lee Tui. And the Prime Rigby. Is there going to be Godslap merch anytime soon? There is. If you'd like a brand new Machinima laptop bag, I'd give you my old one. Nah, you can keep that or throw it away, really, honestly. Esports needs sponsors. Nope, esports has tons of sponsors. It's just still not enough to make up for the massive cost and salaries and all of the people that are required to make teams and run the orgs. Like shit, TSM has who is it? Chevrolet? Fuck. Mercedes? Like every major car brand is in the esports scene right now. I said this before. Moist Esports almost got Jaguar. I always exaggerate that, but they were interested for like a day. But like the thing is, most big car brands are in esports. Like that's not an issue, but it's still just not enough to offset the huge costs. It's the Prime Junie, Ali in the resub, Salaya, Liam, Banjo, Cyclone, and Tier 1 Bottle. You have to think about, I see people keep comparing it to sports, like how do sports make money? Well, there's an obvious difference between sports and esports. When you own a sports team, how do you think you're making the most amount of money? Ticket sales, to go watch your team play. The beauty of esports is you don't have to go anywhere to watch them. You go on Twitch, you go on YouTube, and you watch them for free. Like, you're not selling tickets. It's a totally different landscape. TV contracts as well. Yeah, it's so different. And I guess merch, because sports has been around for so long, it's like cool to wear sports merch. That's fair. Esports isn't there yet. Like, no need to pretend that it is. Esports isn't on the same level as normal sports merch yet. But yeah, tickets is still a huge part. TV contracts still a huge part, obviously. Thanks to the resub Rager and Arctic. And yeah, I know about Elemental. Tickets is drops in the bucket. Okay, I think in the grand scheme of things when it comes to big sports, yes, tickets are not their number one cash cow for it, but it is significantly more than esports has when it comes to like steady revenue. There are so many other ways of monetizing like traditional sports than esports right now. And that's what a lot of people are now learning after getting in the space.
About a terrible experience she had with Rich. And I really recommend you read this on your own because I think it states how she feels about it more clearly and everything that happened more clearly. But I'm going to read you two excerpts. I'm not here to sleep with you, and I do not want that. That is Lexi to Rich Campbell when they were hanging out at Rich's place. And then Rich replied, by jerking off in front of her while continuing to talk about her getting pregnant and then begging her to have sex with him. After she said no, he continually attempted to take her clothes off. She kept saying no, and at the very end, he rolled her over and put himself inside of her and finished unprotected. That was hard to read, but it is a clear picture of sexual assault, rape, just outright. Now, Rich hasn't replied to this yet, but there were a lot of text messages that backed up them being together at that exact moment, him asking her to come over, etc., and it ended off with a text from him to her right after it ended with the same timeline saying, "You okay?" So I believe the account. You can wait for Rich Campbell's statement, which hasn't come out yet, but it's pretty clear that OTK also believes the statement, or at least is concerned enough about it that they instantly, and I mean instantly, dropped him. Within like hours of the statement coming out, he was booted from
Yeah,
OTK,
it was sub
which
3 hours. It was a little
big.
speed
He's
run,
one of
honestly.
the founders of it, and they kicked him out. So that was a terrible thing to happen. But the next week, the troubles didn't end for OTK as a whole because they lost a huge part of their organization. Jay Schlatt. Now, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to tell you the value that Jay Schlatt has on the YouTube algorithm. He's one of my most viewed videos on pretty much every single one of my channels, and he's part of the reason why Mogul Mail even exists today, because the weekly slap is what inspired me originally. And he mutually agreed to leave OTK. Now, it might not seem like a big hit because, you know, he's not much of a streamer. He doesn't stream too often.
But he's a huge content
many people
creator.
didn't even know he was in OTK. But if you look at OTK's YouTube channel, that has almost 600,000 subscribers, that was built by Jay Schlatt. Let's just take a look at the top 10 most viewed videos. 9 of them.
Well, you can even just look at the
involving
newest
Jay Schlatt.
videos. Every single
He's
one
like
of them has Jay
13
Schlatt.
of the top 15. He
He's a tier 1
is
soap.
OTK
Pogs
YouTube,
in green.
and I think that's a big thing to lose. And then the week after that, which was actually just last night, we finally got the end to the investigation on Mizkif over the alleged sexual assault cover-up involving his best friend at the time, Crazy Slick. And now, if you don't know, this was basically a third-party law firm that OTK hired to investigate Mizkif, to which a lot of people, I think, understandably were upset about. They're like, okay, well, aren't you just investigating yourself? But who is supposed to do the investigation? If there were no charges filed by the police and they aren't doing an investigation, it's not like someone's going to magically get up and do it. You kind of have to hire someone to try to absolve yourself. But even if we just ignore the entirety of the investigation, I think it's pretty safe to say that a lot of the allegations made in the original tweet by Trainwreck were outright false. I covered this in a video I made yesterday called I Lied, but if we just go over it one more time again, there was no blackmail.
Cody in the prime
Not an iota of blackmail was seen. When Train said, are you going to send Maya and Mitch to
kind of backpedal real quick, though, I don't think anyone was, like, initially talking about OTK investigating themselves, because they did immediately make it clear they were sending it off to the Jackson Walker LLP, or a third-party investigation firm. I think the reason why people are saying that now is because they didn't publicize the results. Of course, I haven't finished the video yet. I wonder if Ludwig has the same take on it that I do, but I think it's a huge disservice to take something so public and then privatize the information that was found. It makes it very hard to take their word for it and trust everything was done fairly, over the board, everything treated equally, and reaching this conclusion. I just think this needed to be public. You can redact personal information so no one's safety is at risk, but just letting people see the general evidence that was collected, and then people can make their own decisions on how to feel about it and where to go from there, and whether or not OTK is making the right decision by bringing Mizkif back. It's just a huge misstep by not putting out like a PR statement from Jackson Walker as opposed to an OTK statement. I think that's why people are saying they investigated themselves and found themselves guilty of no wrongdoing or whatever.
to say that as the one thing that did age really poorly and that was pretty bad of Mizkif, aka this clip. Well, let's just play my reaction here.
Single person that we used to hang out with that doesn't hang out with Slick anymore because of what happened. I actually think there's literally none. Because the reality is, worst comes to worst of it, it's fucking like sexual harassment, right? I mean, like who, like,
man, this is deep. Blood.
Sexual harassment, whatever.
Jesus Christ.
Now, this was a clip from Miz that was on his alt stream that didn't sound so nice in the moment. And this is what I said about it.
At a low scale, it's not really a big deal.
It's like going to a carnival into that house of mirrors.
This is Miz speaking way too candidly and way too stupidly about sexual
Back to
assault,
Lud 1?
saying it's low scale, like there's a tier list that we have to drop every year on what sexual assault we need to rank S tier, what sexual assault we need to rank F tier.
And I lambasted him a bit for
Back
that
to Lud 2?
comment because it was pertaining to sexual assault, which is like a big deal. But I was wrong. He wasn't talking about sexual assault at the time. It was only known that Crazy Slick, his roommate at the time, sexually harassed Adriana. That's based off her words. Listen to this.
I've only recently figured out and found out, especially without sitting, that it's sexual assault.
So I feel like that covers it. I'm just playing that clip again because is totally coincidental that I happened to upload that video yesterday or 2 days ago, and then they did this announcement yesterday. Obviously, I have no clue that this was coming. Otherwise, it would have been great to just wait a day, and that would have covered it. But yes, rehashing a lot of the original claims of Mizkif covering up sexual assault don't seem to be true. What is true, and what OTK did punish him for, were his actions on his comeback stream October 11th, which demonstrated a lack of empathy and ignorance towards the seriousness of the situation. Now, I never made a video about this. I never really talked about this, so a lot of you might not know. But after
he had a really awful
the
fucking
initial
comeback
apology
stream.
that Mizkif made on Twitter, he kind of went radio silent for a while. He didn't stream for a long time, and then he suddenly was like, I'm going to come back and I'm going to stream. Fine.
And it was also after redoing that apology on Twitter 5 times and every time missing like the actual problem with it. It was rough. Like that whole series there was an absolute disaster. Like an absolute disaster. Thanks to the resub Levi, Ben, and the Prime Nut, and the 10 gift subs JJ. Appreciate it, man. Thanks for the big drop. And I hope you're having a great New Year's. And the resub Phil, Lambo, and Max Alive, and Quick Draw. The Prime Malos.
That's up to him. You know, the investigation wasn't over. It was going a while. He missed streaming. But his comeback stream was, to put it lightly, embarrassing. It started with an hour of him basically stalling because Hassan and XQC were both reacting to him to try to see what he was going to say about the investigation
God,
or what he
that's
was
so
going to say about the
2020.
entire situation.
Jesus, 2022.
And Mizkif, in response to this, played
We're beyond
Super
that
Mario
now.
64 and said, I'm going to keep playing until you guys stop watching me. And they didn't. So then he eventually ponied up, and then he said, I have no news. Which by itself would just be like, you know, kind of embarrassing. But then he also had this moment, which was really just dumb.
No matter what, dude. One of my things.
Now, this is a tattoo artist who talks about how good he is at cover-ups, specifically with bad tattoos.
I am a master at cover-ups and reconstruction.
Me too, for 4 years.
Excuse me?
I think this will not look good like this. Like, let's.
That's
Good
tough.
one.
He also pulled up this video of sexual harassment is illegal. It was just kind of tone deaf. I don't think he had a
forgot about
plan
that
going
second
into
part.
the stream. And although it doesn't seem like anything involving a sexual assault cover-up was true, it is true that he made an inappropriate joke about sexual harassment and that he had some unsavory clips and like random
Thanks again,
calls.
J-Fish. Appreciate it, man.
Generally, I just don't think handled it as well as he could have or should have. And I think it's pretty clear that my boy Stans had the better path of what you should do in that position.
And you just go, hey, chat, I've been gone for 3 weeks thinking about everything that's happened. There's an investigation going on, so I can't say anything about it. I hope to give you guys the truth, but in the meantime, I am out of OTK on whatever. I'm going to be streaming like normal so I can make money to pay my rent for the next after this, but today I'm going to leave. I hope I can share more information with you soon. And then you turn off stream. That's it. Literally, that's it.
That's
Super
ridiculous,
Mature Stans
Stans. That doesn't make any sense. You can't get any farming done in that way. Preposterous. Preposterous. Stans once again showcasing that not only was he not God's gift to boxing, he's not God's gift to PR. Ridiculous. Stans. Laughable.
Guy. He's someone who I go to for a lot of the things that I need to do. In response, again, to Miz acting inappropriately during this stream and in the wake of all the drama, OTK has decided
If you're here,
to
Stans, fucking love you,
remove
man.
his board duties effective immediately and place him on monitored probation, which is basically just them saying, hey, we're going to punish him because we acknowledge that it was bad, but we're not going to kick him off. And I think, honestly, if Mizkif wasn't such an important piece of OTK for the first year and a half of its creation, I mean, every big stream was on his channel. He was really carrying the org on the live stream front. He probably would have been kicked off. Straight up.
100%.
If he wasn't that valuable, they probably would have booted him for just how he handled it. Because if there's a clear goal with OTK here, and it is to remove the bad connotations for the bad things that have happened with some of the org's founders
Prime,
from the
Tier 1
org's
Cephalon. Give Sam Antonio.
like idea in public conscious, but basically trying to clean up their image, right? To put it simply. But I'm going to make a prediction right here, because although it's been a hell of a year and an even worse month, I think OTK has a bright future, and it's not because of Mizkif. It's not because the other streamers on it, but it's because the people running it. Now, I know Tips. I know he's a good dude, and he's someone who came in clutch for me when I was running my Smash event and my chess boxing event by helping out, by sponsoring it with Starforge.
He is a great guy.
And I know he's got a good head on his shoulders. He's a smart guy, and I think he'll take the org good places. And he's joined by Zach Diaz, another guy who I know is a super good dude who worked at TikTok and Twitch. So barring any other drama and barring these two guys leaving the org, I think OTK will probably stick around, although they will always have a bit of a stained reputation with some, and that's just a battle that time will defeat. And that's about it. I think that covers pretty much everything.
Oh.
Let me know your thoughts, and thanks for watching. All right, subscribe. All right, see you later. Goodbye. That's pretty much it. That happened to the OTK. Don't start an esports org. And honestly, content teams,
Hey.
there's a risk in working with a lot of people because you have to count on those people to be good people. But you never know who's a good person. I could be a bad person. Don't trust anyone, except for people you love. All right.
Okay. Overall, a great recap. Again, I still 100% think this was a mishandling of not publicizing the investigation results. You don't need to get into the specifics if it puts anyone's safety at jeopardy. This was a very public problem. You can't have the evidence that was collected be private, because now no one's ever going to believe it, including me. I have a very hard time believing it. I would like to see everything. I don't know what the truth of the situation was, which is why I'd like to see what's available so I can make my own informed decision on what likely happened and what went on, and who better to get that from than the fucking Jackson Walker LLP third-party investigation unit turbo survival training force. Like, I would like whatever they collected to reach this conclusion to look at myself, to reach my own conclusion. So hopefully, like, I don't think it's too late to release it. They absolutely can. Be like, hey, upon further reflection, we feel it's in the community's best interest so you can see everything that we have about this situation, and everyone can make their own opinion and form their own conclusions on, where to go from here. Like, I don't think it's too late. They can absolutely still release it. And I think that would be extremely beneficial, not only for OTK, but legitimately everyone. So hopefully they'll do that at some point. Thanks to Tier 1 Buckeye. The resub Nomi, Filth, Oakley, Sleepy, Stubu, and the Prime Trippy. I think most people already have their minds made up, guilty or not, regardless of evidence. That's a pretty defeatist look. Right now, there is no evidence from this investigation. The most unbiased investigation, I imagine, since it's a third party, and they didn't provide any evidence to contribute to this, so of course everyone already still has their minds made up. But if they release this evidence, there's a chance it could change mind. If there's good evidence, good collection of data and everything, but they didn't provide it. So everyone's still in the exact same headspace with the exact same information that we had 2 months ago. To be honest, there is no evidence from the original accusation either. You can get into the weeds of the entire thing if you want. It's of course going to boil down to individuals. I'm talking about on a broad scale. This is an organization whose entire fucking purpose for existing is investigating. They collected evidence on this case, provide it to the public, since this was all public, and then everyone can once again make their own conclusions on it. It's not going to change everyone's mind. It might not change anyone's mind, but at least it's complete. Then you have everything. And then you can make your informed conclusions on it. The middle ground take? It's not a middle ground take. I think that's just a common sense take. I don't know why I just keep fucking repeating myself here. I feel like one of Taylor's streams right now talking about rockin' and rollin'. It is a public issue that had occurred. Why keep all of the evidence private? You can redact information that's sensitive and puts people at risk and release the general findings publicly and let everyone look at it. It's just, I think that's very, very easy. I have a hard time looking at this and just believing everything was great. He was innocent on everything that they investigated. However, if they provided the evidence and I could go through it, maybe I'd see it and be like, oh, it turns out he truly was innocent on everything. And this Discord call was misunderstood, or this stream moment was misunderstood. Possible? Like, the point is just having it so I can see and make my own decisions on it. Thanks to the Prime, TB, and the resub Juicy, Flamin', and Krusty, and Hamison. That's all I'm saying. If you're at the point where you're going to doubt findings from Jackson Walter, you're probably not going to believe the report. Again, it might not change everyone's mind, might not change anyone's mind. I just think it's important to have for the complete picture on everything. Of course, I think the history of Twitter has shown us people will disregard things that don't fit with what they want to believe. I think that's very obvious. So, of course, even if the evidence 100% confirms Miz was totally innocent, in fact, he wasn't even in Austin at the time, people would still ignore that. But maybe there's things there where they're like, oh, this is still a little sketchy, because even in this statement, they say that there's not enough evidence to confirm that he was guilty of anything. So maybe someone sees it and they were on the fence initially and they're like, this is still very sketchy to me. I just don't know if I can really move on from this and watch Miz the same anymore. I think it's just important. Thanks to resub Chase, Brycer, and Mad Hat. The Prime, Ramen, and Mom. The resub JJ and Turtles. Biggest issue is that horrible comeback stream. Well, the stream is objectively horrible. His comeback stream was very, very tasteless and very, very bad. Yeah. But I don't think that's the biggest issue. Again, the whole situation was a big issue. And just, I think, for the millionth time, this team should have a statement out from their investigation about what they found and everything that was collected. They found nothing, that's their statement. Well, then let's hear it from them. This was the worst investigation we've ever been handed. We couldn't find anything. Sorry, guys. Literally just anything from Jackson Walker I would like to see in regards to this investigation.